We just wanted to bring you into a conversation that me and Dylan are currently having as the kids are napping.
Yeah,
and
fresh off the press, we were like, well, we should actually just record a video right now.
because I just feel like it's so important as that we're talking about it, and I know that like a lot of other families can possibly relate to this. So really, our topic today is intentional parenting as a mixed couple. We have two beautiful girls. You know, Ayla is almost 4 years old and almost going into big girl school. And really being intentional about like what does that mean in terms of like school or language, and making sure that we're really like symbolizing that at home and talking more about this.
Yeah, and I just went out and I was getting a coffee while the girls were sleeping, and I was listening to a podcast, and it was with a guy who was half black, half white. And he was just talking about some of the struggles, and that's what kind of, you know, I came back and we started down this conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things that really I think we realized today is that we need to be intentional about Ayla and Anaya both being able to speak Shona as a language.
Yep.
Because we were thinking about, okay, any insecurities or struggles that they might go through, identifying as like, yes, I'm part Zimbabwean or half Zimbabwean. It's going to be like so much more difficult relating to other Zimbabweans, understanding the culture if they can't speak the language.
Right.
So that was just like one item where we were like, we need to be really intentional about making sure that they at least can understand the language and hopefully speak it, because we think that will just make it a lot easier for them.
Yeah.
Identifying with other Zimbabweans.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, it's really important to think about that, right? Because at home, it is easier for me to just talk English. We all understand. It's, you know, even when my kids go over to our kids, right, go over to my parents' house, like I feel like for them, they just speak to them in English most of the time. But really, like being intentional in our home, and also with the grandparent, being like, no, we want you to speak to them in Shona. They need to learn, and we want to make sure that they go to their cousin's house, and that's something that's also being encouraged. Because our biggest thing is we want our kids to be proud of both sides. We want them to walk into a room and be like, yes, I'm half Zimbabwean and I'm half American, right? And right now we currently live in America, in the US, right? And so they have that big exposure where everyone's speaking English to them and all things like that. But that's such an important part that I can play in the home of being like, wait a minute, let's speak more Shona, where we can bring that culture into our.
That's a good idea. We should do like a monthly thing where we have your parents over or something and do a Shona
They would
dinner,
love that.
Shona only dinner. But yeah, and it's like too, we were talking about, we want our kids to be confident enough with themselves that like we know they're going to face adversity. Everybody faces adversity regardless. We know they're going to go through struggle, have hard times with things in life. So we want them to be, you know, confident enough and strong enough to deal with those things themselves. But we're just thinking about how can we kind of shape the environment a little bit so that it makes it at least a little bit easier or is supportive of them in life. So we kind of talked about language, we talked about the school system, and really where we're living to make sure that it's at least a little bit diverse.
I mean, it's hard. We live in an area that's not diverse, right? But that's where most of our family lives. So of course we want to stay within the area, but I think it's so important to see people that look like you, that have the same hair, same skin, you know, and something that like, I remember going, when I was in school, when I was in college, there were just not so many Africans or Black kids there. And I feel like that kind of does something, right? And we were personally talking about some examples that we've already kind of seen with Ayla, and like, it's just important that she has a group that she can be like, okay, you're perfectly beautiful and unique, and there's a whole bunch of people that are different and unique and special in their own way. So yeah.
And I think we just don't want her to be, we don't want them to be like the only ones that are mixed or whatnot. So I feel like that's just important to be at least a little bit conscious of. Conscious of, and just make sure that we're picking an area to live, to go to school, to do, you know, where the environment's at least somewhat diverse.
Right.
Anything else we were thinking about?
I feel like some fun things that I don't think we really went deep into this, but maybe doing like nightly Shona lessons, or you know what I mean, like the idea with my parents and things like that is going to be something that we'll be implementing. But I think one big thing we have learned with being parents is you just have to be intentional about a lot of things. Sometimes 100%. Easier to just kind of go with the flow, but be intentional.
There's so many influences out there. So we want to at least be a little bit intentional within our lives, within our family, to make sure that we're passing on these things and at least being aware that there's other influences out there.
Right.
So.
And we want to be like those top influences for them, right? While they're young.
Exactly.